two as important as 10.
100%. Yeah, we ready? There we go. Okay. It's great to be back. I'm only giving the share this week. Don't worry. Next week's back to normal. My father will be back. Thank you. So this week is Parshas Va'era, which pretty much discusses. So we'll just sort of run through a summary of the Parsha. It's always interesting to be talking about. Basically, we're going to be talking about Pesach because that's what the Parsha is about. I hope I don't give anybody anxiety or Pesach's almost here. But anyway, that's what the Parsha is about. So the Parsha begins. It really picks up actually in the middle of the story. So what happened last week was Moshe Rabbeinu went to Paroi for the first time to ask him to set the Jewish people free. Paroi not only refuses, he actually makes it worse. And what we know that the Jewish people actually got very upset at Moshe Rabbeinu because, you came here to tell us that we're going to go out of exile, and look what happens. It only gets worse. And that's where the Parsha ends last week, when Moshe Rabbeinu almost challenges, or does challenge, Hashem, and he says, Lama hari oisel amazeh, why did you do bad to this people? You're doing bad to them. And that's where the Parsha starts off. The Parsha starts off with Hashem saying to Moshe Rabbeinu that I appeared to, that's the word Va'era, I appeared to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It's a little bit cryptic, the Psukim, but we'll go through them inside and try to understand what it's saying. But basically, what he's trying to say is that they didn't doubt me, but you did doubt me. And I was almost sort of upset at Moshe Rabbeinu, that why did you doubt me? But don't worry, I remember my covenant, and now you're going to see that I'm going to take them out. And we have the famous 4 expressions of redemption, which we'll get to a little bit soon, which is why we have 4 cups of wine on the Seder night, to remember those 4 expressions. Morning, how are you? No problem. It always is. And then what happens is the Parsha actually interrupts the story and gives us a little bit of a brief history of the descendants of Levi, or descendants of Yaakov actually, Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, and stops by Levi because the descendants of Levi are Moshe and Aaron, and then the story picks up again with Moshe and Aaron going to Paroi, and then the rest of the Parsha talks about the 10 plagues, or not 10 actually, 7 out of 10. In this week's Parsha we have 7, and then in Parshas Boy we have the last 3. That's next week's Parsha. So that's pretty much a summary of the Parsha. So let's begin reading inside on page 318 in the article Chumash. I'll just read through the first few psukim here. So the pasuk says, "Vayidaber Elokim el Moshe," that Hashem spoke to Moshe, "Vayomer Elov," and he said to him, "Ani Hashem, I am Hashem." Okay, we have to understand what that means. Va'era el Avraham, el Yitzchak, ve'el Yaakov. And I appeared to Avraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov, bekeil shakai, as keil shakai. That's one of the names of Hashem. Ushmi Hashem, but the name of Hashem, in other words, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Loi noidaiti lohem. I did not become known to them. Also, very cryptic. What does that mean? Right?
It's amazing that they've got 3 names of Hashem in the one.
Yeah. Well, Keil Shakai is almost one name, but yeah, you're right. It's 2 different names. It can be split into 2, right? It could be used different. Yeah. So what does that mean? So we'll see soon. V'gam aki moisi es brisi itam, and I also established my covenant with them. Losis lahem es eretz Canaan, to give them the land of Canaan, es eretz mugureim, the land of their sojourning, asher garu ba, in which they lived. And then he says, "V'gam ani shamaiti," and I've also heard as nakas b'nei Yisrael, the wail, the cry of the Jewish people, asher mitzrayim avidim oisam, which the Egyptians are enslaving them, v'ezker es brisi, and I have remembered my covenant. Okay, so what do these psukim mean? What does it mean that Hashem says that I appeared to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, bekeil shakai, and the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei, I did not become known to them. So let's first of all have a look at Rashi and see what Rashi has to say. So Vayidaber Elokim El Moshe, and Hashem spoke to Moshe. Says Rashi, the very first Rashi, Diber Itoi Mishpat. He spoke to Moshe with words of rebuke. Al Shehiksha Ledaber Veloimer, for speaking harshly and saying, Lomo Hareoisala Mazeh, why have you harmed this people? Right? It's mentioned in last week's Parsha. Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem, why have you harmed these people? So now Hashem is rebuking him. The reason where we're getting that from is Vayidaber Elokim. Elokim is usually the name associated with justice, with harshness, right, with judgment. And therefore it says Vayidaber Elokim El Moshe, that Hashem is speaking to him out of judgment. Okay, so what does he tell him? Vayomer Elov, and he says to him, Ani Hashem, I am Hashem. What does that expression mean? Ne'emon l'shalem sochar tov la'mishalchim lefanai. I am faithful to pay a good reward to those who walk before me. I have not sent you for nothing. Rather, I have sent you to fulfill my words that I spoke to the forefathers. And then Rashi continues and says that expression, Ani Hashem, we find many times in the Torah, and always in the context it means that I am Hashem, who you can trust to either give the punishment or give the reward, whatever the context is. So a lot of times the Torah will say, this and this mitzvah, Ani Hashem, I am Hashem, meaning that I'm trustworthy, you can trust me to give the reward or give the punishment. What he's saying is you can trust me to fulfill the promise that I gave to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov to take their children out of Egypt. Let's have a look at Rashi and Pasuk Gimel. What does it mean, the difference between Keil Shakai and Yud Kei Vav Kei? It says, Va'eira ela avos bekeil Shakai. I appeared to the patriarchs, to our fathers, with Keil Shakai. Hiftachti haftachos. I made promises to them. Ubekulam omarti lehem. And in all of them I said, Ani Keil Shakai. I am Keil Shakai. That's the name that Hashem used when He gave them that promise. However, Ushmi Hashem loy noidaiti lehem. That through my name, Hashem, I did not become known to them. Loy hoidaiti ein ksivkan. I did not inform them is not written here. Elaloi noidaiti. Rather, I did not become known. What does that mean? Loy nikarti lohem b'midas amiti sheli. I was not recognized by them in my aspect of truth. That's what he says. Yud Kei Vav Kei is the name of truth. Sha'aleha nikra shmi Hashem, because of which I am named Yud Kei Vav Kei. Ne'emon la'ameis dvorai. I am faithful to uphold my word. Sha'rif tachtim v'loi kiyamti. For I promised them, but I have not yet fulfilled my promise. That's what it means, Ushmi Hashem loy noidaiti lahem. Meaning they didn't recognize my truth. In other words, they didn't see yet the fulfillment of the promise. However, you will. That's what he's saying. In other words, I appeared to them in the name Keil Shakai, but Yud Kei Vav Kei, which expresses Hashem's truth, that yet has not been revealed because His promises have not yet been fulfilled. So that's the very sort of cryptic psukim, hard to understand what it's saying. So we'll see a little bit deeper what all this means, but that's the simple level what Rashi is saying. Okay. So this expression, which we said before, Vayidaber Elikim El Moshe, right, that we know that means that he spoke to him harshly, with the midah of Elikim, of justice, of judgment. The issue with that is that the end of the pasuk says, Vayomer Elov Ani Hashem. Vayomer is more of an expression of a light sort of talk, and Ani Hashem, Hashem is Yud Kei Vav Kei, is also the midah of Rachamim, right? No difference in Lekim and Yud Kei Vav Kei. Lekim is judgment, and Yud Kei Vav Kei is Rachamim, is mercy. So what is it? Is it judgment or is it mercy? Right? How is Hashem speaking to him here? It's a little bit of a discrepancy between the beginning of the pasuk and the end of the pasuk. So the Apterov explains a very interesting thing, and it goes down to the essence of what Moshe Rabbeinu was and the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu. Right before this, in the Parsha, in Parshas Boy, if you have a look at the very last pasuk of last week's Parsha, just turn back one page. It's chapter 6, verse 1. It says, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Hashem said to Moshe, Ata tire, now you will see. Asher ese leparoi, what I shall do to Parai. What does it mean, now you will see? So, Rashi says, what does it mean? Now you will see. It means you will only see it now, but not when you go into Eretz Yisrael. In other words, Hashem is already sort of, even though it wasn't really decided yet, it only happened when Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock, but Hashem is basically hinting to him that you're only going to see the downfall of the king now, but not when you go into Israel and the 7 nations are destroyed. In other words, Hashem is telling him that you're only going to see the exodus from Egypt, not when you go into the land of Israel. And as a continuation to that, we see Vayidaber Elikim El Moshe Vayomer Elov Ani Hashem. We see judgment on the one hand, and we see mercy on the other hand. How so? Because on the one hand, first and foremost, that's a judgment. That's a harsh thing. Hashem is telling him, you're going to be stuck in the desert. You're not going to go into Israel. In other words, on the surface, that's coming from Shem Elikim. That's not coming from Rachamim. That's not coming from mercy. On the other hand, the truth is, on a deeper level, it's actually incredibly merciful of Hashem that Moshe Rabbeinu did not go into the land of Israel. Why? Because we know a very, very interesting thing, that when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, it says that Hashem said that really, I will destroy the Jewish people. Right, really, the Jewish people deserve to be destroyed. And the expression is, Shofach HaKadosh Baruch Hu es chamosai ala eitzim v'ala avonim. Hashem, so to speak, poured out his wrath on stones and sticks. In other words, instead of destroying the Jewish people, he destroyed his house instead. However, we know that if Moshe Rabbeinu would have gone into Eretz Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu would have built the Beis HaMikdash. And we know that if Moshe Rabbeinu would have built the Beis HaMikdash, it would have never have able to be destroyed, because whatever Moshe Rabbeinu builds is everlasting. And therefore, if Moshe Rabbeinu would have gone into Eretz Yisrael and built the Beis HaMikdash, the only other option Hashem would have had would be to destroy the Jewish people. And therefore, it was actually a good thing that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't go into Eretz Yisrael, because then Hashem was able to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. This is what the Abdurrov says, a fascinating thing. And to Moshe Rabbeinu also saw that as a Yudke Vavke, not really an Elikim. In other words, he saw that as a Rachamim, not as a Din, as mercy, not as judgment. Why? Because that was Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu gave up everything for the Jewish people. We know that, right? He was ready to be erased from the Torah in order for the Jewish people to survive. So Moshe Rabbeinu saw it as, yes, on the one hand, it's Vayidaber Elikim. It's judgment speaking, it's harsh, it's hard, right? On the other hand, no, actually it's Ani Hashem, it's actually a Rachmanis, it's actually a mercy that Hashem is having on the Jewish people, that Moshe Rabbeinu will not be going into the land of Israel, he will only be taking them out of Mitzrayim.
Was he aware of that though, at that point? Would that be?
On a deeper level, I guess. I mean, it's not the pshat in the psukim, but on a deeper level, that's what the psukim are saying. Whether he was consciously aware of that or subconsciously, I'm not sure exactly how it works. But yeah, I guess like many things, he understood on many levels. Right. Okay. Another pshat here that's said is that it uses Shem Elikim here, and it says Yishem Hashem. So the Medrash says that it's Elikim, it's judgment for Mitzrayim, for the Egyptians, and Yud Kei Vav Kei, it's Rachamim for the Jewish people. That's the context there. Hashem is speaking judgment to the Mitzrayim, to the Egyptians, and Rachamim, a mercy for the Jewish people. And what does that mean? Why? Because when Moshe Rabbeinu said in last week's Parsha, Lama hara oisa la'amazeh, why have you harmed this nation? What did he mean by that? Right? So simply speaking, he meant that when Moshe Rabbeinu came, the work got worse. So you harmed the Jewish people. Hashem caused harm, so to speak. Now they have to work harder. But on a deeper level, what he's actually saying is this. When Moshe Rabbeinu originally came to Egypt for the first time, the Jewish people actually believed him. Now that they see that it got worse, the Jewish people have lost their emunah, they've lost their faith. So what he's saying to Hashem is that you've actually harmed the Jewish people's faith. Right? You sent me, I said that Pokoid Bakadti, that Hashem has remembered he used the expression that Yosef said that the Redeemer will use, that Hashem has remembered the Jewish people, who'll redeem them. They believed me, but now they don't believe me anymore. Like we learn in this week's Parsha, it says, they didn't listen to Moshe because of the hard work. And what Moshe Rabbeinu was really saying to Hashem is, don't blame them that they've lost their faith. It's not their fault. It's the Egyptians' fault. Because they are making them work very hard. In other words, really they would have faith. It's just been so hard, you just tested them too hard through the Egyptians that it's impossible for them to have faith anymore. And that's what Hashem says, I accept that. Vayidaber Elikim, Hashem speaks judgment. Judgment to who? To the Mitzrayim. In other words, Hashem blames the Egyptians that the Jewish people have lost their faith. And therefore he's going to give judgment to them and mercy to the Jewish people. So it's a continuation to what Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, why have you harmed them? They've lost their faith. Hashem says, yeah, I understand, but it's not their fault. So I'm not going to judge them, I'll judge their oppressors who caused them to lose their faith. So that's another interesting insight. It's a very interesting idea that we see that when Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu that go back to Mitzrayim and tell Paro all these things, so Moshe Rabbeinu tells Hashem like this. Second, side. On page 320, Pasuk Yud Beis, verse 12. It says, Vayidaber Moshe lifnei Hashem leimor. Moshe spoke before Hashem, saying, Hein b'nei Yisrael lo yishamu elai. The Jewish people have not listened to me. Va'eich yishmo'eni Paroi. How's Paroi going to hear me? No, the Jewish people, it's like this. He did what's called a kal v'chomer. In the Gemara, we have a concept, Parshas Bal Peh, in the oral Torah, we have something called kal v'chomer. Kal v'chomer means, if you see, the classic example of kal v'chomer is, if I say that kal v'chomer literally means a light one and a heavy one, a more like a lesser one and a more severe one. What that means is, for example, if I say that an adult has to cross the street by a green light, so kal v'chomer a child does. Right? If someone I take the lesser case and I learn out from that to the more severe case. Right? If someone you don't have to worry, he also has to wait for the green light. Someone for sure you do have to worry about, for sure has to wait for the green light. Right? That's an example of a kal v'chomer. So Moshe Rabbeinu is making a kal v'chomer here. If the Jewish people didn't listen to me, so how much more so Paro is not going to listen to me. Right? The question is, however, there's a number of questions in this pasuk. Number one, what kind of kal v'chomer is that? There's a reason why the Jewish people didn't listen to him. The Jewish people didn't listen to him because they're working too hard. That doesn't apply to Paroi. In other words, he's saying that Paroi is not going to listen to him from how much more so from the Jewish people who didn't listen to him. But there's a reason why the Jewish people didn't listen to him. Me'avoda kasha, because they were working too hard. Right? Second of all, what does it mean? Vayidaber Moshe lifnei Hashem leimoyer. Moshe spoke before Hashem, saying. We know whenever that expression, like it says, that expression comes up many times in the Torah, right? By Daber Hashem el Moshe leimer. What does that mean? It means to say. Hashem said to Moshe to say it over to other people. So what does it mean in this context? Moshe said to Hashem, leimer, to say to who? And what is that word leimer doing there? So the pshat is, the truth is, what he's saying actually doesn't make sense. In other words, what he's saying that if the Jewish people didn't listen to me, then for sure Paro is not going to listen to me. Taka doesn't make any sense because the Jewish people had a reason not to listen to him, and Paro doesn't have that reason. What Moshe Rabbeinu wants is that Hashem should say that. In other words, he wanted to bring out how it's not the Jewish people's fault. So what did he do? He said something that doesn't make sense. He said to Hashem, I'm going to go to Paroi. Paroi is not going to listen to me. How do I know that? If the Jewish people didn't listen to me, how much more so Paroi is not going to listen to me? Why did Moshe say that? Leimor. For Hashem to say back, but hang on, there's a reason why the Jewish people are not listening to you. What's the reason? Because they're working too hard. So Moshe Rabbeinu will say back to Hashem, that's the case, it's not their fault. Don't blame them for not having faith. In other words, he wanted, so to speak, Hashem to admit that on his own. But so he said something to Hashem that doesn't make any sense, for Hashem to answer him back, hang on, that doesn't make any sense, because there's a reason why the Jewish people are not listening to you, and that's because they're working too hard. And Moshe Rabbeinu will say, if that's the case, so you can't blame them. And that's going back to the pshat here. Hashem says, Elokim, judgment will go to the Mitzrayim, mercy will go to the Jewish people. Because although it's true they've lost their faith, but it's actually not their fault. That's all connected. Okay. Then we have, just going back for a second, where it says in Pasuk Vav on page 318, we have the famous 4 expressions of redemption. So let's just read this inside quickly. It says like this: Lochein emoir, therefore say, Libnei Yisrael, to the Jewish people, Ani Hashem, I am God. Vayitzeisi, that's the first one. Vayitzeisi, Eschem, I will take them out. I'll take you out. Mitachas sivlois Mitzrayim. So here it translates the word sivlois from under the burdens of Egypt. V'itzalti eschem avidosam. That's the second expression. I will save them from their work. V'ga'alti eschem, and I will redeem them. That's the third expression. B'zroya natuya b'shvatim g'doilim, with an outstretched arm and with great judgment. V'lokachti, that's the fourth expression. Eschem li la'om, I will take them from me as a nation. V'yisi lachem le'lekim, and I will be for them as a God. V'yidaitem, you will know, ki ani Hashem le'keichem, that I am Hashem your God. Amoitzi eschem mitachas sivlois Mitzrayim, who takes you out from under the burdens of Egypt. That expression is repeated there, sivlois Mitzrayim. And then there's actually a fifth expression. We always know the four expressions, but the fifth expression is vehevesi, I will bring you, eschem, ela oretz asher nasasi es yodi, to the land which I raised my hand to give to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So there's actually a fifth expression here, which is interesting. It's not really about the redemption from Egypt, it's more about what's going to happen after they're redeemed from Egypt. They're going to be taken to the land of Israel. Interestingly, so we know we have, based on this idea, the rabbis instituted that we should have 4 cups of wine on the Seder night to remember, corresponding to the 4 expressions of Geula, of redemption. But the truth is, we actually have 5 cups of wine. What's the 5th one? Kaiser Shel Eliyahu's cup. Right? That 5th one is corresponding to Vehevesi, that 5th expression. And what's the connection to Eliyahu? Because and why don't we drink it? Because the truth is, it says in many Sfarim that 5th expression, Vehevesi, is really referring to the coming of Mashiach. That Hashem will really bring us to Eretz Yisrael. In other words, we'll be there permanently. And that's why we don't drink it yet, because Mashiach hasn't come yet. The 4 expressions already happened. The 5th one hasn't happened yet. Right? And that's why it's Eliyahu HaNavi, because Eliyahu HaNavi is the one who will announce the coming of Mashiach. Right? So that's the interesting idea. But it's going back for a second, before we get to that 5th expression and a very interesting idea there. The expression that the Torah uses many times here, that Hashem will take us out, mitachas sivlois Mitzrayim, which literally means from under the burdens of Egypt. Right? So what does that mean, sivlois Mitzrayim? So this is quite a difficult concept, which I'm about to say. Not difficult in understanding, but it's more difficult to live by and apply. But it's an important concept, and it's quite fundamental. Sivlois has another has another meaning. Right? Anyone's been to Israel? What do they tell you when you get nervous? Savlanut. What does savlanut mean? Patience. Right? Same word, sivlois. Patience, meaning that the Jewish people had patience. What does that mean? Meaning that they didn't, at least according to this interpretation, this comes from the Tiferes Shlomo, the Radomsker, they didn't question Hashem. Even though they went through so much suffering, so difficult, they took it. They took it with patience. In other words, they knew that Hashem's going to take them out. They knew Hashem has a plan, and that's the reason why they're here. Even though it was terrible, terrible slavery, terrible, terrible suffering. And that's the pshat, where it says in last week's parsha, it says, "Vayetze Moshe el Echov," and Moshe went out to his brothers. Vayar b'sivloisam, he saw literally their burdens, right? But vayar usually means that you look at something very intently, like you study something. He saw them working, he studied them, and he saw that b'sivloisam, that they're patient. In other words, they're not questioning Hashem. They still believe. They're taking it with love. They're not taking it with questions. They're not questioning Hashem. And the truth is This is a fundamental concept in Yiddishkeit. You know the famous Gemara? The Gemara says that just like you bless Hashem for the good, Kashem shemevarchim ala toiv, kach mevarchim ala ra, so too we bless Hashem for the bad. And the Gemara asks the question, what does it mean, just like you bless Hashem for the good, so too you bless Hashem for the bad? It's a different blessing. When something good happens, you say, Baruch HaToiv v'hametiv. Hi, Jenny. And when something bad happens, you say, Baruch Dayan ha'emes. Right? So what does it mean, just like? What's the comparison? And the Gemara says, just like you bless Hashem for something good, you do it with simcha, you do it with joy. So too, when you bless Hashem for something bad, you have to also accept it with joy. Now that's very difficult, obviously, but that's what the Gemara says, right? And he says over here a fascinating interpretation on something that we say every single day. It's the first time I've seen this. And it's a beautiful idea, a very difficult one. He says it's not only when you're suffering physically. In other words, what happened in Egypt is not only because, and not only in Egypt, but on a daily basis, right? When people suffer, it's not just they suffer physically. As a result of that, they also suffer spiritually. And not only suffering like in its fullest sense, you know, God forbid people are sick, and etc. Even just normal suffering, I mean by that is like, you know, problems with money and financial burdens, you know, life's issues, right? And it's difficult not only physically, but what happens as a result of that is we can't serve Hashem properly because we're burdened. In other words, it's hard to focus on spirituality when we have so many distractions from our physical day-to-day problems. So he says, even that you need to accept. Even that you need to accept as that's part of Hashem's plan. Because Hashem wants you to serve Him even when it's difficult. And how do we see that? So there's a famous idea, the Gemara says, on V'yahavta, we say every day in Shema, V'yahavta es Hashem Elokecha, we have to love Hashem your God, b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, u'v'chol mo'idecha. With all your heart, with all your soul, and b'chol mo'idecha is a very hard word to translate, with all your with all your might, whatever the case is. And the Gemara interprets, what does all those things mean? So b'chol levavcha means b'shnei yitzarecha. Right? Levavcha, with actually it's plural, with all your hearts, meaning you have to love Hashem not only with the Yetzer Tov, but also with the Yetzer Hara, even with the evil inclination. What does b'chol nafshecha mean? This is a famous interpretation. The Gemara says, you have to love Hashem to the extent es b'chol nafshecha, with all your soul, afilu hu noitel es nafshecha, even if He takes your soul. In other words, you have to be ready to give up your life for Hashem. That's what the Gemara says on b'chol nafshecha. That's a famous interpretation. We say every day in Shema, b'chol nafshecha, you have to love Hashem with all your soul, even if Hashem demands that you give up your life for Him, you have to be ready to do that. So he says the Radomsker, says a deeper interpretation in that sentence. Afilu hu noitel es nafshecha, even, which literally means even if He takes your soul. The word nafshecha, besides for soul, can also mean rotzoin, desire. He brings a pasuk in Yeshes nafshechem, which in that context the word nefesh actually means desire, will. He says you have to love Hashem even if Hashem does things that bother and disturb your desire to serve Hashem. Even if He takes away your desire to serve Him, you have to love Hashem. In other words, you need to understand that that's part of Hashem's plan. If Hashem wanted you to have an easy life, to live in, to undisturbed, and just learn Torah and do mitzvahs and focus on Hashem all day, He would give you that life. From the fact that He didn't, from the fact that He gives us challenges and He gives us disturbances and distractions, and it's difficult, we need to do all we can to serve Him anyway, but we need to accept that as well. It's part of Hashem's plan. Afilu noiteles nafshecha. Even if He takes your desire for spirituality away. In other words, He does things, He puts things in your life which disturb your spiritual well-being, your desire to serve Hashem. Even then, v'yahavtas Hashem Elokecha. You need to love Hashem your God. And that's the pshat, sivloisam. They were patient. In other words, they accepted Hashem's decree, even though it not only disturbed them physically, but even disturbed them spiritually. Even that is part of Hashem's plan. Fascinating Fascinating idea. And that's the pshat that Hashem will take them out mitachas sivlois Mitzrayim. As a reward for that, as a result of that, Hashem will take them out because of sivlois Mitzrayim, because of the fact that they were patient. In other words, they accepted Hashem's decree. Yeah, everyone with me here? Okay. Difficult to get your head around. That's for sure. Yes, that's true. Okay. So I mentioned just before, we might come back to this idea soon, just to go on to the idea of the fifth expression of redemption, Vehevesi. Hashem says, I'm going to bring you to the land. So, we know that what that means is, in other words, is that already by the going out of Mitzrayim, the redemption from, not only from Egypt happened, but the potential for the final redemption also happened. From the fact that Hashem already said the fifth expression, not only the four expressions that Hashem, I'll take you out of Egypt, but also the fifth expression that I'll bring you into the land. As I mentioned before, in Sfarim it says that means Mashiach. From the fact that Hashem said it then, it means that He already set in motion the final redemption as well. Okay.
Sorry, where is that? Sorry.
Vehevesi is page 318, Pasuk Ches. Vehevesi eschem lo. It's the second to last line. Right?
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That's an unbelievable thing. That means that Mashiach is not something that Hashem, so to speak, has to bring. In other words, it's already been set into motion. It's already almost happened. It just needs to play out practically. In other words, the button has already been pushed, so to speak. In other words, from Hashem took us out of Egypt, the potential for the final redemption already happened. Now it just needs to play out in a revealed way, so to speak. Right? Now we have a very interesting idea, just to sort of develop this idea, to bring out how unbelievable it is. The Gemara says in Bava Kama, Masechta Bava Kama deals with damages, the laws of damages. And one of the damages that a person is liable to pay for is a damage through fire. Right? If you light someone's house on fire, or someone's field on fire, right? And the Gemara has a whole analysis based on what is someone liable if they lit something on fire. In other words, what is the liability here? And according to one opinion, Rabbi Yochanan says, Ishoy mishum chitzoy, which means, literally, fire is because of his arrow. What does that mean? In other words, seemingly, you can ask like this: I lit a flame, and then this is very, very relevant for nowadays, right? For what's happened in the past few weeks. If someone lit a flame, and then suddenly it spreads, right? So, I lit the flame. I didn't make the fire spread. So why am I liable for the fire spreading? It's only from a halachic analysis point of view, right? Obviously, you are liable. The question is why. So one way of looking at it is, so to speak, like the fire is like your property. It's like as if I dug a hole in my property and someone fell into it. So it belongs to me. So something that belongs to me damaged someone else, or my ox, let's say, damaged someone else, right? So in other words, that's one way of looking at it. Rabbi Yochanan says no, that's not the pshat. The pshat is it's like you shot an arrow. When you shoot an arrow, it's true that when you shot the arrow, nothing happened. It's when the arrow reached the person that something happened. But nevertheless, since when you shot the arrow, you did something that cannot be taken back. So therefore, it's as if, when do you become liable? When you pull the trigger. Not when the arrow hits the person. When you pull the trigger, since now nothing can be done to stop the damage, therefore you become liable when you pull the trigger. So too, when you light a fire, you don't become liable when the fire burnt down the house. You became liable when you lit the fire. All right? That's what he says. If that's the case, by something good, by something bad, so much more so by something good. We can apply the same principle we just said. Hashem, so to speak, pulled the trigger, pressed the button for Mashiach. In other words, it's as if it already happened. It's not as if it's already happening and it's set in motion already. It just needs to spread. No, it just has to play out practically, but it's as if it's already happened. However, the issue with this is, we find another saying of Rabbi Yochanan, which seems to contradict this. Rabbi Yochanan says, there's a famous opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, that Tisha B'Av should be on the 10th of Av, not on the 9th of Av. Why? Because what happened is actually they lit the Beis HaMikdash on fire in the afternoon of the 9th of Av, which is when we observe Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av means 9th of Av, and when we observe the destruction. We mourn the destruction. However, most of the destruction actually happened on the 10th of Av. So Rabbi Yochanan says, if that's the case, we should really be observing Tisha B'Av on the 10th of Av. The question is, isn't that a contradiction? Rabbi Yochanan holds that why? Are you liable for fire? Because you shot an arrow. So according to him, the destruction already happened on the 9th, because that's when the fire was lit. Why does he then say that you should observe the destruction on the 10th? According to his opinion, the liability of fire is when you lit the fire. It's like you shot an arrow. That's the case. So when the Beis HaMikdash was lit on fire, that's when the destruction happened, even though practically it played out the next 24 hours. So why does he then say that you should observe Tisha B'Av on the 10th of Av? And the answer which is given is because it's different. Because the Beis HaMikdash was not lit by people. Because we know that the Beis HaMikdash would never have been able to be put on fire. First of all, it's stone. So the fact that it was able to burn down itself is miraculous. And we know that Hashem lit it on fire. When Hashem lights something when Hashem shoots an arrow, he can stop the arrow. When a human being shoots an arrow, you can't stop the arrow, right? So therefore become liable for when you shoot it. When Hashem shoots an arrow, the arrow never leaves his hand, so to speak. So too, when he lit the Beis HaMikdash on fire, he could have always stopped it. And therefore, says Rabbi Yochanan, you need to observe Tisha B'Av on the 10th of Av, because that's when he actually didn't stop it. But if that's the case, coming back to our discussion, so what that Hashem already set into motion? The future redemption. But Hashem could stop it. Right? Just like Hashem could stop the destruction, so too Hashem could stop the Vehevesi, the final redemption of coming into Israel. And the answer is that it's different, something bad and something good. We have a principle that when Hashem says something bad is going to happen, he could regret it. In other words, he can stop it from happening, which is why if a prophet says that something bad is going to happen and it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean he's a false prophet. It just means that Hashem went back on the decree. However, if a prophet says something good is going to happen and it doesn't happen, then you know he's a false prophet. Right? Because Hashem never goes back on something good. If he promises, so to speak, he decided that when he promises something good's going to happen, he's, so to speak, Kaviyachol forced to do it. And therefore, when Hashem, right at the beginning of Jewish history, when the Jewish people are coming out of Egypt, the first redemption, right away there's a fifth expression, Ve'ivesi, Hashem promises us he's going to bring us into the land of Israel on a permanent basis with the coming of Mashiach. That already set it into motion, and now Kaviyachol, so to speak, even Hashem himself can't stop it. Obviously, it's because he himself decided that. He himself decided that when he says something good is going to happen, it can't be stopped. And therefore it's already set into motion. And therefore, when we're in a bitter, dark exile, what we need to always remember is that it's already been set into motion. It's all happening, it just needs to play out practically. But it's not something which can be stopped, it's something which is going to happen, definitely for sure, when Hashem decides that it's the right time. Okay.
Excuse me.
Yes. Sure.
Does that mean that when Hashem has promised something good to a human being, he's put it in motion, but he can take his time?
Yes, maybe.
Is that what?
Yes, it could happen later, but it has to happen.
Okay.
Right? Again, because he decided that it has to happen. Because when it comes to Hashem, he's not forced to do anything. Mm-hmm. But if he, so to speak, desires that he should be forced, then it becomes forced, so to speak. Right? Okay. Now we have let's go to a totally different part of the parsha, to the 10 Makkos, to the second plague of Tzfardeia. I want to share with you a fascinating idea based on a medrash, which I've printed out. I want to read the medrash with you. It's the paper that I put in front of you. And the medrash discusses the Makkah of Tzfardeia. So if you just skip a few lines here, if you go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the seventh line, where there's a dot there, it says Rabbi Seinu Omrin. This is from Shmois Rabbah. Rabbi Seinu Omrin, our teachers taught us. Mahu, what does it mean in the pasuk from Keheles? The Yisroin Eretz Bakoilhu, which means every advantage that exists in the world belongs to Hashem. What does that pasuk refer to? It means, says the rabbis, afilu dvorim, even things that you see, you think that they're extra, kegoin zvuvin uparoshim v'yatushim, like flies and mosquitoes. Why did Hashem create this? Hein hoyu b'chlal briyos shel. This is part of the creation of the world. In other words, there's a purpose. Shneimar, as it says, vayar elikim es kol asher asa, that Hashem saw everything that He has done. Okay. And the Gemara brings what are the purposes of flies. Apparently, there were certain medicines that were made from flies and mosquitoes. So there was some sort of purpose that Hashem created them. Rab Chanina says, "Afilu dvarim sha'ataroya oisan ki'ilu em yutorim ba'ilam." Even things that seems to you that they're extra. Kagoin, he brings different examples. Says nechoshim va'akrovim, snakes and scorpions. Hein hoyu b'chlal briyos shel. They're also part of the creation. Omer lehen HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'neviim. Hashem tells the prophets, "Mo atem sfurim." What do you think? Im ein atem hoichlim b'shlichusi. If you don't go on my behalf, you don't go on my and do my mission. V'chi ein li shliach. Do you think I have no other messengers besides for you? V'yisroin eretz b'koili. Everything that exists in the world belongs to me. Ani oise shlichusi. I do my work. Afilu al yidei nachash, even through a snake. Afilu al yidei akrov, even through a scorpion. Va'afilu al yidei tzvardeya, and even through frogs. So the Medrash says. Teida l'cha, no, shekain, sholule atzira, flip over the page. If not for the tzira was a special flying bug that went with the Jewish people when they went into Egypt, when they went into Eretz Yisrael, and it blinded the Canaanim, the enemies. How would Hashem punish the Emirates? And if not for the frogs, how would Hashem punish how would I punish the Egyptians? Is what it means in the pasuk, that I'm sending a punishment of frogs. So it's a very interesting medrash, and it needs to be understood on many levels. First of all, what does that mean that Hashem says, if not for the frogs, I wouldn't have been able to punish the Egyptians? Why? First of all, there were 9 other plagues. Second of all, the whole idea is bizarre. What do you mean, if not for Hashem has no other way of doing it? Could have made them all drop dead in a second if you wanted to, right? The whole plague was unnecessary. Okay, it need to be explained why there were plagues. So what does that mean? If not for the frogs, I wouldn't have been able to punish the Egyptians. Number one. Number two, what does it mean? If you look at the sequence of the Medrash, right? So we have the rabbis, and then we have Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Achab, Rabbi Chanina. The rabbis say, even that it says flies and mosquitoes and all these things are necessary. They're part of the creation. He then goes and adds snakes and scorpions. What's he adding to what they said? Seemingly he's adding, even those snakes and scorpions, not only they're useless, but they also cause damage. In other words, flies, okay, they're harmless. So fine, you don't see any use in them, but at least they don't cause damage. So that I understand, okay, there's some sort of purpose. But snakes and scorpions, what's the purpose? So that's what it says, no, even there's a purpose. And what is the purpose? The Gemara explains that it punishes Rishayim, they punish wicked people, whatever the case is. Okay. And then there's a third thing he introduces. He says, Afilu aydei nachash, even through a snake, even through a scorpion, and even, you know what? So I'm going to tell you something even more. Even through a frog. Why is that even? If I understand that snakes and scorpions have a purpose, frogs are also harmless. Frogs don't harm people. So frogs should go in the first category, not be even more. In other words, you're saying, like, first of all, the Medrash tells us that flies and mosquitoes are for a purpose. Not only that, even snakes and scorpions. Not only that, even frogs. What's the not only that? Don't frogs fall into the first category? Right, so what exactly is going on over here? It's a strange medrash. So the Rebbe explains something fascinating, and it's something which you can see very, very clearly when you deal with people, and especially when you're trying to inspire somebody else. Right? There are many different people you try to inspire, and some people are easier to inspire, and some people are harder to inspire. Right? Some people are harder to change and easier to change. And we'll see what is the biggest spiritual problem that a person could have that makes it extremely difficult to inspire them. So the purpose of the 10 plagues were not just a punishment. Right? The 10 plagues, because again, if Hashem wanted to punish them, he could have just made them all drop dead and that would be the end of it. Right? There's obviously a reason why Hashem brought the 10 plagues. The 10 plagues were much more of a purification process. Purifying Egypt. In other words, Egypt is not just a geographical place. Egypt represents a spiritual problem. And the plagues were there to take care of that spiritual problem, to purify that problem, to transform that spiritual deficiency. So what is the problem of Parai? What does Parai represent? What does Egypt represent? So like this. We are commanded to believe in one God. What does that mean, one God? That means that we are commanded to believe that there's only one, on a simple level, before you get to deep Kabbalistic ideas. On a simple level, it means we're commanded to believe that Hashem is the only power that exists. In other words, everything else, the expression is kegarzin biyad ha'choitzev. It's like an axe in the hand of a woodchopper. In other words, it's not that the sun actually has power to give heat. It's not that the rain actually has power to make things grow. No, it's all Hashem's power. He uses them as an axe. In other words, they have no choice in the matter. It's not like the sun could decide one day not to shine, right? Or not to give heat. It's all Hashem. Hashem's working, Hashem has tools. These are all Hashem's tools, right? The first level, so to speak, of kfira, of heresy, of not believing in Hashem, is what's called korulei eloka d'olokaya, which means when you start calling Hashem the God of gods. What does that mean? You believe, that Hashem is the ultimate authority. You believe that. He's the ultimate God. However, you also believe there are other gods. This is called shituf. Shituf means partnership. In other words, you believe there are power to other things. It's just that Hashem created everything, and Hashem gave them their power, but now they have that power. And that's really how idol worship started, actually. Because what started is, they started to believe that Hashem gave power to the sun and the moon, and they can choose, and therefore you need to pray to them, to ask them, and to thank them, etc. Who's an example of such a thing, of such a person? Bilam. Bilam is somebody he was the prophet of the non-Jewish prophet. He was somebody who said, "Lo uchol laver al pi Hashem." I'm not going to be able to transgress the command of Hashem. In other words, he understood that Hashem ultimately controls everything. He can't do anything without Hashem. It's just that he didn't believe that there's only one authority and that's it. He also believed in other things as well. But he believed that the ultimate power is Hashem, and therefore he can't rebel against Hashem. Now, by the way, the truth is that for a non-Jew, it's not such a problem to believe this, because they're not commanded. It's called ein muzharim ala shituf. In other words, a non-Jew is allowed to believe in what's called shituf, in partnership. A Jew is not allowed to believe that. A Jew is not allowed to believe that the sun, the moon, and the stars have any power. As long as a non-Jew believes that Hashem is the ultimate power, that's okay. And as we see, if you believe that, then you understand that Hashem is the ultimate authority, and then you don't transgress the word of Hashem. That's one level. The second level is that you also call Hashem the God of gods. However, you say that Hashem didn't create you. Meaning, you say that the world created itself, or that you created yourself. And we'll bring an example of such a person in a second. Right? Meaning like this. What does it mean that you believe in a God? You believe that Hashem is truth is He's the most powerful God. That's true. But He has nothing to do with me. I created myself. Who's such a person? Paroi. Paroi says, Li yo'ori v'ani asisini, that the Nile belongs to me and I made it. I created the world. I created myself. What's called mitziusei matzmusei is the expression in Kabbalah. In other words, it's like I think that I've always been here, I created myself, God didn't create me. Yeah, there's a God, but it has nothing to do with me. Okay. And then, the third level is someone who denies God altogether. Says there is no God. Right? We call atheism today. Right? And that's a person called Sancheriv. Sancheriv was a terrible Rasha who mixed up the whole world. It says, he says that there is no God at all. He denies the whole existence of God. Out of these, so let's summarize the three. One of them is, you understand that Hashem is the ultimate authority, He created everything. It's just that there are power to other things as well, but ultimately Hashem runs the world, and He never would transgress the word of Hashem. Then there is someone who doesn't deny the existence of God, but just says that he created himself. And then there's somebody who denies God altogether. Who's the worst? What do you think?
I think the person who pretends he's God, like Pharaoh, and says, I created myself.
But why is that worse than somebody who denies God altogether?
Because that's so blasphemous. The other one is
Oh.
an opinion.
Okay.
I think.
On one level, yeah. And perhaps a little bit deeper, the reason why number 2 is actually worse than number 3 in a way is because like this. Number 1 acknowledges the existence of Hashem, and Hashem really controls everything in a positive way. In other words, that Hashem actively controls everything, therefore I listen to him. Number 3 also actually acknowledges the existence of God. If you need to deny something, that means it exists. It exists enough that I need to deny it. In other words, he's touched you. He's affected you to the degree that you need to deny him. Right? So that means that Hashem is part of your life. Just, let's call it ba'ofen shlili, in a negative way. I need to deny him. But that means he somehow touched me. Paroi was the worst problem. Why? Because Paroi says, I don't even care if there's a God. Let there be a God, I actually don't mind, but it has nothing to do with me. I made myself, God made himself, he has nothing to do with the world made itself, and there's no connection between the two. In other words, he cares so little that he doesn't even need to deny it. Yeah, I don't need to deny it. Let God exist, no problem. It doesn't affect me. Total apathy.
I think
Right?
it's arrogant beyond words.
Yeah, and that's why it's the worst. Because Hashem, God has not at all affected him in any way, shape, or form. Not even in a negative way. There's no connection, so to speak, seemingly. And these are the 3 things that the Medrash is talking about. There are the flies and the mosquitoes, the things that don't clearly bring out Hashem. In other words, the Pirkei Avos says, "Leibara Kadosh Baruch Hu davar echad kol ma shebara Kadosh Baruch Hu leibra elu lichvayde." Everything Hashem created in the world was created for Hashem's honor, and was to bring out the greatness of Hashem. However, that's true by everything. There are certain things where you see it more, and there are certain things where you see it less. Flies and mosquitoes, you don't see it so clearly. However, it's much easier to bring out what the purpose, because they don't do anything wrong, they don't damage, and there's a clear toiles, there's a clear good thing that comes out of them, as the Gemara explains, there's medicine which is developed by them. So in other words, it's like the first level. Okay, it doesn't like bring out God in his full glory, but at least they acknowledge that Hashem exists, so to speak. They bring out a good part of creation, the creation of Hashem. Then there are snakes and scorpions. Snakes and scorpions damage the world. In other words, they acknowledge the creation. They acknowledge Hashem's plan just in a negative way. They're out to damage Hashem's plan. They're out to damage Hashem's world. That's like the one who denies Hashem altogether. In other words, the one who wants to deny Hashem, the one who actively goes against him. Fine. That also can bring out the honor of Hashem, because they can punish the wicked people. But it's a little bit more difficult. But at least they bring out the honor of Hashem by the very fact that they're trying to destroy Hashem's world, means that they destroy Hashem's plan, means that they acknowledge that there is a plan they're trying to destroy. Tzvardeya, frogs, are just nothing. There's nothing good about them and nothing bad about them. Right? In other words, seemingly it's like they're untouched. They're like paroi. In other words, they're not like paroi because they don't choose to be that way, but they represent the idea of something like a frog, where it doesn't have anything good about it and doesn't have anything bad about it either. It doesn't damage. In other words, it's just totally oblivious to the whole plan altogether. It doesn't help the plan, it doesn't destroy the plan. And Hashem showed Paroi that even Svardeya can bring out Hashem's glory. And that's why the Medrash says, if not for Makas Svardeya, I wouldn't have been able to punish the Mitzrayim. Meaning, the only antidote, the only way to get Paroi was to use something like Svardeya. Something which doesn't help the world, something that doesn't damage the world, something that's just oblivious of everything else besides for itself. In other words, someone like Paroi, and even that thing should fulfill Hashem's will, should fulfill Hashem's desire. And that's how Hashem got Paro. Even someone like Paro, even someone who is so untouched, so much doesn't care, he doesn't even need to deny it, doesn't even need to destroy it, even him Hashem created. Even he has a purpose. And that's how Hashem destroyed Egypt, through using something like the frogs. All right.